Not a problem, Greg. All right, let's do this. We got 9 people now. Fantastic. All right. Hi guys. Welcome to our Gen AI in Fintech Meetups third virtual event tonight. So I think I launched this meetup thing about a couple of months ago. This is the third event, and without actually much promotions and marketing, I think we grew to about 220, 230 members already. So thanks for everyone's support to us. I think we're growing very strong. Hopefully, we'll have more interesting sessions coming up. So tonight's session is very exciting. But before we start it, I just want to start with the acknowledgement of the country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting here tonight. I pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I also extend that respect to other Aboriginal and also Torres Strait Islander people here today. My name is Kurt Young, the founder of Gen AI in Fintech Meetup, and also your host for tonight. I'm a digital banking product manager at Sandstone Technology. We are a white label digital banking SaaS technology solution provider for more than 30 banking institutions globally. Personally, I'm super passionate about lean product management and also Gen AI technology application in fintech industry, hence why I'm creating this meetup group. Just a couple of quick housekeeping rules before I introduce our lovely guest speaker tonight. Please feel free to raise your questions in the chat section on the side, which we will be addressing them after the presentation and the demo. Please also mute yourself while either me or our guest speaker is presenting. And also the session is being recorded right now for further sharing and learning purposes. Let me know if you have any issues with it. All right. Without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you a lovely guest speaker tonight, Ahsan Zubair. I hope I pronounced your last name right, Ahsan. I actually
did. You're doing all right.
Appreciate it. With more than 30 years of experience in information and communication technology, Ahsan is a very seasoned professional and a founding partner of Creative Object Pty Ltd in Australia. Since its inception in July 2007, Ahsan has led the company to develop and implement numerous successful software products, specializing in asset finance and insurance industry specifically. His extensive expertise and leadership has been instrumental in driving the company's growth and innovation in the financial technology space. Without much further ado, take it away, please, Ahsan.
Thank you, Kurt. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ahsan Zubair, and I am the Managing Director at Credit Objects Proprietary Limited. Credit Object provide software solutions within the asset finance space, and we provide software solutions from loan origination to loan servicing. Today's presentation is about generative AI from an enterprise perspective, and the title that you see on the screen. There's a small story behind this title. We were sitting back in November 2023, and we were discussing from our customer perspective what generative AI has to offer to our customer base, and how should we go about integrating generative AI solution into our product offering. So during that brainstorming session, finally we came up with this particular title, the enterprise-wide generative AI, revolutionizing the workflows and the strategies that needs to be as part of the implementation of generative AI across the enterprise. At that time, the OpenAI had launched their first version of the Assistant API. So that was pretty much one of the reasons that we looked at the enterprise-wide generative AI implementation. Brief introduction about the credit objects and myself. Kurt has already done that. Just a quick overview of what is generative AI. Generative AI refers to a category of artificial intelligence algorithms and models designed to produce new data, such as images, text, audio, by learning patterns from a training set of data. So effectively, the key concept of a generative AI is ability to generate new data based on the patterns that they have been used to train the generative AI solution or a large language model. Some of the benefits of generative AI, the technology interaction is through natural language processing. It provides the out-of-box machine learning, and it also has the capability to process unstructured data. I mean, those of you who are in the IT space, you will know the businesses hold more unstructured data than probably the structured data. So there's a lot of data sitting in different repositories in an unstructured format. So generative AI, one of the key benefits is actually the processing of unstructured data, the natural language interface to the technology, and the out-of-box machine learning. You don't have to actually go through the machine learning implementation process to start using the generative AI in your business. So when we looked at, back, 8-9 months ago, and we thought from a technology perspective, the offering that generative AI brings on the table, it has to be something more than a chat box. We didn't want to build another chat box where the users are chatting, but we wanted to look beyond building a chatbot, and we looked at the overall landscape at that point in time, and there was a concept that has been introduced by multiple technology firms, IT consulting firms, about AI agents and how they can be beneficial when integrated, when looking at it from a perspective of from a large language model or a generative AI perspective. At this point in time, there isn't a particular definition that the industry agree on what is an AI agent, but from a simplicity perspective, we can think of an AI agent, a piece of software that does a particular task or group of tasks on behalf of a user. That's the definition. Is a pretty standard definition of an AI agent that one can pretty much agree on. But the industry has different perspectives. Somebody think of AI agent as an extra employee, as a customer service support officer. But ultimately, the AI agent is driven by a software, and the goal is to perform a task on behalf of a user. Some of the benefits of AI agents are increased efficiency, cost saving, obviously, as by automating as much as possible. You can actually save costs as well as time. The improved scalability, the accuracy, obviously, as the agents are being processing the data, the accuracy will also increase over time. Some of the key types of agents out there, and this is the classification of AI agents we have taken from a creator of Baby artificial general intelligence. So handcrafted agents. So these are the most common agents at the moment, where you have a chain of prompts. So when we are interfacing with a generative AI solution or a large language model, some of the examples are, the OpenAI, GPT, Anthropic, Google Gemini, and those of you who have used ChatGPT or any other chatbot that is interfacing with a large language model, generally you type a prompt, and once the prompt is submitted to a large language model, the large language model has an API call in between, and the response is returned in a natural language. So the prompt is given, for example, in English, and the response is also given in English. So these are pretty much the handcrafted agents. The prompts are being handcrafted by the subject matter experts or the users themselves, and they are being typed in. The other category of type of AI agents are specialized agents. These agents are highly specialized. They are operating probably in a particular business domain, and they are trained, or they have been designed to perform subset of tasks using some tools and different task types. They are not as constrained at the handcrafted agents, but they are still a little bit constrained. The general agents, or the artificial general intelligence agents, these are yet to come. When they will come, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, this is something the large language model providers are working at, whether it will happen in years' time or it will happen sooner. That is anybody's guess. I would suggest most organizations who are actually trying to build large language models using the AI agents as a technology platform are probably operating within the handcrafted agent classification at this point in time. When we started integrating the generative AI solution as part of our credit object product offering, we looked at what are the open source frameworks available in the market space at that point in time, about 6 to 8 months ago. And we came across a number of open source frameworks. One of them was large, the LangChain. There were a few others as well. By evaluating those frameworks, we end up deciding to build our own internal framework for integrating the generative AI technology into the credit offering, into the credit object product offering. And I will dwell on that later on in my presentation. Why did we decide to build our own internal framework? Why didn't we go with one of those open source frameworks available in the market space about 6 to 9 months? So when we looked at building internal generative AI integration framework, we wanted to build something, some sort of a framework where we have a more configuration-driven framework. We didn't want to build too much framework that is purely code-based or code-driven. So we wanted to build something that is configuration-driven or metadata-driven. And we identified the framework needs to cater for a number of capabilities. One of those capabilities is to actually pull the data from our existing data sources in real time and feed that data into a large language model by incorporating that data as part of the prompting. So the framework that we built actually has two main components. One of the component is the tasks. So these tasks are actually YAML files. They are defined in a YAML file. These are JSON configuration file. So this is a metadata configuration file. It contains the model that we need to connect to. It has some connection parameters related to a model. It also have parameters or connection parameters related to the underlying APIs that are internal to our products. And it also have internal configuration related to a particular prompt that needs to be included as part of the task. So a task could be, for example, analyzing a bank statement, or analyzing an Equifax credit report, or analyzing a capacity analysis, for example, or sending an email or sending an SMS. So these are some of the examples of a task that is part of the process. The tasks are held in a source code. We treat tasks as pretty much like a source code. So the tasks are held in a Git repository. So we can actually control the task management from an editing perspective, who has made changes to a task, when those changes were done, who has approved, and all those lifecycle management. Similarly, from a prompt perspective, we looked at when designing the prompts. Prompts are pretty much in plain text, but we are using a framework for prompts, and the framework we are using is a templating engine called Jinja 2. So the prompts are, even though designed in plain text editor, but they are being incorporated into a template engine using Jinja 2 framework. The prompts are also held in a Git repo, so that gives us more control who is actually changing these prompts, and we can actually track the life cycle of a prompt. So the prompt and the task are the key components of our internal generative AI integration framework. At the moment, we are integrating with the OpenAI Assistant API version 2. So those of you who have bit of a technical background, we have integrated our solution with the API offering Assistant API version 2 offered by OpenAI, that pretty much underpins their ChatGPT platform as well. The OpenAI platform is version 2. It is currently under beta. So our system is fully integrated with the OpenAI API, Assistant API version 2. So previously I mentioned we built our own internal generative AI framework. We didn't go with one of the open sources frameworks available, such as LangChain. And these are the four main reasons that we wanted to build our own layer. One of the main these four reasons are we needed to customize the framework. We wanted the agility and speed. We wanted to customize it as quickly as possible without relying on the open source release. And we wanted to build a low-level framework. We wanted to have more control on how the framework needs to integrate with the large language model APIs, and how does the framework integrate with the internal APIs of our product offering. So we wanted to have more control. And then we had more control in terms of the fine tuning and the efficiency of the internal framework as well. So it took us a while. I mean, we spent about good 6-7 months in terms of laying the foundational capabilities of our internal framework, hooking into the OpenAI Assistant API version 2. Initially, it was integrated with version 1. Then in April, OpenAI released a new version. So we were able to migrate to a latest version in a reasonable time frame. The framework is also integrated with our internal APIs, which runs in a different process as compared to the framework. Framework is written in Python. Our internal APIs are written in Java for our product offering. And then the prompts are stored in a Git repo as well. So those prompts are being processed through Jinja 2 template engine. So these are the four main reasons that we decided to implement our own internal framework for generative AI integration. The need of customization, speed, and agility. We have more control. We can decide to change the source code or build the framework whenever we want to, at far more at faster, and the efficiency is another part of it. In terms of the lessons learned while we were, so I think we are one of the early adopters of generative AI into our product offering. We believe the journey we are on is just getting started. It is not we are not even close to the finish line. We are not even, I think we are just getting started. We wanted to experiment and explore. And I think I would also recommend the participants, if you have the inclination and if you have the company behind you, or you want to do it on your own, this is the right time to explore and experiment with the technology without actually worrying about the use cases. I mean, it is important to have a go, whether you decide to integrate at an API level, or you try to explore at the ChatGPT, where you sign up and start using ChatGPT or any other chat framework from Google or from Anthropic, and have a play and feel the feel of the technology. From a organization perspective, it is important to have a buy-in at the executive level. If one decide to explore the generative AI technology, it is important to get a buy-in from the top executive. Once you have the organization buy-in from the top, you need to have a strategic approach to it. You may need to come up with some use cases which are actually going to drive the strategic competitive advantage for an organization. You need to do a bit more brainstorming, with the business and IT, and come up with use cases or something that the top executive are more amenable to the implementation or exploration of generative AI within the organization. I think without actually having the buy-in from our top executives, it will be difficult to continue the exploration of the generative AI within the organization. The other lesson I would recommend is the educate your workforce. Whether it's your client workforce or your internal workforce, you need to have more open communication, alleviate fears about job losses. Generative AI is not going to take away the employee or jobs as we hear. It's an add-on. It's an assistant, and we recommend human in the loop throughout the process. But I think having an open communication within the workforce and within the organization will definitely educate the entire employees and the organization, the senior management, what this technology has to offer, and how should we approach it. In terms of the strategic approach, let's go to the previous. In terms of the strategic approach, we build our own middleware, and we see this as a short-term strategy of having our own middleware. But in the long run, we do see ourselves adopting one of the large language models, open source frameworks. And that could happen in the next 6 months or in a year time. But at this point in time, the short-term strategy, we build our own middleware for integrating with the large language model. But we see ourselves maybe in 6 to 12 months time, we could be moving towards integrating one of the more adopted large language model frameworks. You need to prepare yourself for the changes. The technology is rapidly changing. If we are looking at the OpenAI, they came up with version 1.0 in November, and then they release 4 months or 6 months after they release version 2.0. From version 1.0 to version 2.0, there was a big change. So you need to be aware of APIs are in beta, and they can change rapidly, and you need to be mindful of resources that are needed to upgrade the APIs when they have version 3 or version 4. So you need to be mindful of that. In terms of having if you are building a technology proof or a proof of concept, I would suggest have some sort of a goal from a production perspective as well, whether it's a small task, or whether it could be automating an email or an SMS, or analyzing a capacity or a bank statement or a credit report, or building a report using the generative AI model. Have some sort of a outcome that has that can be deployed into a production, however small it is. And we recommend treating the metadata configuration. In our case, those configuration related to a task. A task would be, for example, I said before, analyzing a bank statement or a credit bureau file, or writing a prompt. Treat them as a source code. Especially the prompt is the intellectual property from our perspective. The prompt is where the lot of thought process has to go in when you are designing a prompt. because depending upon how the prompt is designed, what information is being put into a prompt, the large language model will behave what's being written in the prompt. If the prompt is too general, you may not get the answer that you're looking for. There are a number of techniques to improve prompting. There are several techniques of employing prompt engineering techniques, zero shot prompting, multiple shot prompting, and whatnot. So so we think prompt is like a source code. It needs to be protected. It's your intellectual property. It needs to be monitored. It has to be in its own repository. And similarly, the task configuration file that we have in YAML, they are the key component of our middleware. So I would stop here, given the time frame, and start the brief demonstration how the technology is integrated. Like I said before, this is a journey, and we are just getting started. So at this point in time, the technology is not into production, but we are doing a beta with one of our client at the moment. So I'm going to log into the test system. And I've done all the configuration behind the scenes. So once the user is logged in, the user is logged in, and I am logged into our credit assessment platform. So these are all the loan applications that have come in for assessment. And the blue icon is the actual generative AI or the generative AI assistant that we have integrated. At the moment, this assistant kicks in when a user clicks on this icon. We are in the process of building those capabilities where the AI assistant kicks in automatically behind the scene based on whenever a new application comes into the workflow. But at the moment, from a demo perspective, I'm going to click on this particular icon. And once I click on the icon, the chat interface open up. I can type a prompt, or I can click on the tasks that are defined in the configuration. The user can click on a task that has been defined, or user can write a prompt. At this point in time, I'll simply write a prompt. So I'm just writing a prompt, and I click on this one. So if you have a broker, we have behind the scene uploaded some lender documents or their lender credit guidelines, product documentation, and the system will send a query to a large language model inquiring about what products are offered by a lender, for example, Money3. And the system will, the large language model will go through the product documentation and provide a summary of products that are offered by this particular lender. So this is just to give you an example. So the documents are uploaded from an admin console, and the OpenAI API provides. They do have a RAG implementation, or retrieval augmented generation. Behind, they have implemented that. So they maintain a vector store behind the scene. So when we upload the lender documentation, credit policies, credit guide, product documentation, Those documents are uploaded into file store maintained by OpenAI. Those documents are also uploaded into a vector store, which is obviously as part of the API call, we create a vector store. Documents are uploaded there. And when user does a query, the query response also highlight from which PDF, from which source document these data or this response has been generated. So as we know, the biggest problem with generative AI at the moment is hallucination. Sometimes the technology tends to go haywire, and it starts giving incorrect or nonsensical responses. And there are ways to there are ways to cut down hallucination. Elimination is probably not possible, but there are ways to limit the hallucination. And one of the ways is to actually use the technology called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, where you are feeding your own enterprise data into the large language model or generative AI model. The generative AI models are trained on general purpose data scraped from internet or any other sources. So they have no information about the enterprise or the company that you are operating in. So you need a mechanism to feed your own enterprise data into the generative AI model, so you can query your own enterprise data. We see enterprise data having two shapes. One is the more static or less frequently changed data. So those product documentation, credit policies, PDS, product disclosure statements, or policies, that sort of data frequency of change is less as compared to the data that is coming real time. For example, any loan applications that are coming into the organization, that is a real time data. So every loan application is going to be different from the previous one. So we classify the data as data that is changing frequently in real time, and the data that is being that is changed on a less that is changed less frequently. Both of the data set have to go into the retrieval augmented generation tool. So the data that is changed less frequently, we upload that data via an admin console. The data that is changing rapidly, like every single loan application, that data is loaded into the generative AI solution. If I simply close this particular chat interface for the time being, I'm mindful of the time and the time that I need to give to the Q&A as well. So I'll just close this interface. If I double click on a particular loan application, it will open up the file for this particular loan application. And once the interface is open, if I click on this blue box again, now this blue box is tied to this particular loan application now. So if I write any prompt here, again, I'm writing a prompt in the window. Mind you, when we provide this interface to our end users, we provide them the predefined list of tasks that they simply click on. And because of the intellectual property, I can't disclose those prompts that we have written for them. Some of these prompts are quite lengthy and very well descriptive. I mean, but generally, so this is just to give you one example of, I mean, I gave a simple prompt asking for a credit score, and the model came back with I mean, bit more than the credit score. So we have, this is not a live application. This is just a test environment hooked into the Equifax bureau report, and I mean, this is how the interface work. In a beta environment, the user will have a long list of tasks that they can click, and in a mode where the AI agent is 100% automated, these applications, as they come in, they are automatically picked and action on by an agent.
Hey, Ahsan, just very quickly, like when you pick up the data from the applications, this more like streaming data or more like a frequently changed data. Is
Yes.
that done by API, or I'm just trying to understand how?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's done through an API. So remember, I previously talked about the task configuration YAML file.
Mm.
So that task configuration YAML file actually have the API configuration as well. And I'm happy to show a quick, snapshot of the structure of the YAML file that we have. So just to give you an idea, I mean, so behind the scene, this is how the task YAML file looks like. So it has number of, that's where the internal API, it picks up. It knows what the large language model it needs to run on, and where the prompt is located, and things like that. So that's how the middleware metadata task configuration is. And we also have a so effectively what we have, we could have 20, 30, 40 different tasks, and those tasks needs to be executed in a particular order or a sequence. So there is a metadata file that actually lists down the sequence that task needs to go through. So behind the scene, it is like a state machine we have implemented, but we are exploring where the sequence of task is actually decided, or the execution of sequence of tasks is actually decided by the large language model itself, instead of us dictating that the parent task is A, then the B, the C, the D, and E, and F. We are actually working on the mechanism where the large language model will decide. It will run the parent task, and then it will decide what next to do. Whether do I need to run a bank statement task? Do I need to run a credit bureau task? Do I need to run a capacity analysis? Do I need to run a mandatory field check? Do I need to run all those tasks that needs to happen? Well, that's just the configuration file of a task. And similarly, I mean, I have a test prompt repository as well. So if I go into the prompt repository, that's where the sample prompts are. So I just open up. This is where the prompts are written in a WordPad or a Notepad, but these prompts are embedded into a templating engine called Jinja 2 version 2. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that templating engine, but it's written in Python. So the reason we have introduced a template engine, so we can actually replace the data, we can replace the tags, prompt tags with the actual data that we are sourcing from a real-time API calls. And and if you are with me, I can just do one more example and run this one. It takes a little bit longer, but let's see if I'm just going to run a credit assessment task just to give you a flavor. So what I'm asking is to actually come up with the graph, I'm asking it to do a bar graph. So, at the moment, it seems like nothing is happening. But yeah, if you give it a few seconds, if everything goes well, the large language model will come up with the graph. And
Wow.
so this is just to give you, again, if I go back to the prompt, prompt is very basic. We haven't, the more advanced prompt are hidden away in a production repository. But if I open this prompt, it's just a one line. I just gave it a bar graph, income and expenses. That's it. So, but in order to have a really useful interaction with the large language model, you need to put a lot of thought into designing and building prompts. And we work with the subject matter experts and internal business analysts within the company who design these prompts, and then those prompts needs to be vetted against the test data to make sure that these large language models are not hallucinating. And so there's a bit of a science in terms of designing those prompts, managing those prompts, and then running those prompts against the test data to make sure that the outcome is what is expected. But this is just to give you an idea the capabilities of a large language model. So when I gave this task, it actually, in the background, it ran a Python code effectively. So it ran a code in the background, and it automatically decided to run a code. So we didn't write that code. The large language model wrote that code. It came up with the graph, and then it sent us the graph. We simply display the graph to the end user. In a real-time setting, these graphs are part of a data lake or a lake house, basically. So you can actually connect your API depending upon you have a data lake or a lake house, or or whatever the underlying framework, or you could have a simply SQL query. You can pull the data from your enterprise system, feed that data into the large language model, and then write a prompt and say, okay, you want the data, you want to analyze that data, and analytics have to come up with a bar graph or a pie chart or some other mechanism that you would like to go and implement. So this is a brief flavor of what capabilities are available in our product line. And in the next 3 to 6 months, we will be releasing 100% capabilities where the AI agent will effectively does everything as soon as it will kick in, as soon as the loan application arrive into the workflow. It will run all the tasks that are being designed by the subject matter experts or the business analyst, and then it will spit out the final outcome. So for the human in the loop to go ahead. What we also see in the next 3 to 6 months, this interface will change. The UI interface. So we see our end user will interact more and more with the chat box, with this UI, rather than the actual interface, basically. So if the data entry has been done, then we don't see any reason for our users who are going to make a decision whether the loan can be granted or not. They don't need to go and interact with the data, with the actual tab pages. They can simply interact, and the large language model will spit out the outcome and say, okay, this is the task, this is the output, this is the task, and the user can simply go accept or decline. So that way, user is only they're only saying, yes, I agree, or I don't agree, And then if they don't agree, they can simply key in what is the reason that they don't agree with the response given by the large language model. So we can look at, whether it's a hallucination issue, whether it's a prompting that needs to be updated, or maybe we need to add more examples in our prompt. So generally speaking, the prompts that we write have at least one example. That, to start with, we start with one example. In some cases, we have to give more examples to guide the large language model to produce the outcome that we are after.
Wow.
Okay, so I hope that this 1 hour, this 45-minute presentation is useful and excites the participants to explore the technology. And I think,
Yeah, like this is amazing. I mean, like the stuff you mentioned towards to the end as well, just the stuff you guys about to do in the next 3 to 6 months. That sounds really, really exciting. So I can't wait. And probably maybe in 3 to 6 months time, like once you guys launch your V2 or your next version, I would love to invite you back again to talk about like your experience launching it and like all the latest stuff you guys be doing. But I think we do want to leave some time now for Q&A. We got some questions I can see in the chat from Valentina. So Valentina is asking, who are Crit Objects customers utilizing this framework? Do you want to quickly address that one first?
I think, because of the non-disclosure agreements in place, so I can't really name the customers. But I guess, this is something we can discuss probably offline sometime, in the future.
Yeah, I think probably what I'm hoping what she meant is more your target customer
Yeah.
persona.
So the target market is the aggregators, whether they are in the asset finance aggregation business or home loan, and similarly the lenders in the home loan or in the asset finance lending space.
Got it. Cool. And the second question, also from Valentina, does this framework require for its users to have any technical expertise to be able to use it?
The Genius internal framework.
Yeah, I think the little sort of a chatbot thing where you interact with it and everything.
Yes.
It doesn't look like it, but yeah. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I think the prompt writing will require subject matter experts. So you wouldn't expect end user to come up with a prompt, at least not a prompt related to a bank statement analysis or a capacity analysis, or so you need to have a predetermined prompts, and you will need some sort of a subject matter experts to do those.
But I thought like in your case, I mean, this is for your target customers, right? I thought in your case, Crit Objects, you guys actually offer a library or a list of those prompt templates.
Yes, we
default,
do.
right?
Yes,
So,
yes. So we offer the prompt templates that we have written, but we sit down with our customer base. So when they are implementing, we present them the generic prompt templates we have written for analyzing the bank statement, the credit report, and all that. But they have definitely, at the end of the day, the onus is on them to make sure the prompts that they are submitting to the large language model and the output they are expecting are tick all the boxes of compliance and everything else.
got it.
So we don't take the ownership of the compliance. We provide everything black and white to our client. Their subject matter experts will review the prompts to make sure the output is as per their expectation.
Makes sense. Last question from Valentina. Do you guys have a trial version for this this chatbot or this AI agent?
And no, we do not provide trial version. It's an enterprise solution. So to set up a trial for a particular client, I mean, onboarding and trialing, it's a significant effort.
Totally understand. All right. I think we got a couple of questions from my colleague Greg. 3 questions. First one is your framework developed still proprietary or open sourced? I think you answered that, right?
Yes, it's proprietary framework. It's proprietary, and it's built in Python.
Yep. Cool. The second part of the question from Greg: how do you handle applicant data privacy? Actually, that's one of my questions as well. So maybe you can talk about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Quickly.
So effectively, what we are doing when we are submitting the data, the data to the large language model, we scrape out the PII information. So the large language model doesn't need to know the date of birth. They only need to know how old the customer is. They don't need to know the license number. They just need to know the customer's got a valid license. And similarly, they don't need to know they only need to know the customer identity is verified. How we have done it, they don't need to know that. So we are scraping out the PII, and we are scraping out anything. Basically, all the PII is scraped out.
Got it. For that, like what, I mean, I don't know if you can share that. What sort of a technique? Because I spoke with a couple of other Gen AI, startups as well. It seems like people have different techniques to do that kind of a, the PI data wash. What sort of a techniques do you guys use for that? Out of curiosity.
So we do the PII data wash in our middleware, basically the internal Genius framework. So that does the washing.
Got it. Cool. And last question: is your background a backend, or is your background a developer? It sounds like you have a bit of a technical background, right? Or it's from Greg as well. Yeah. The question.
Yeah. Look. My background. I am a managing director of the company. So I mean, over the years, I started as a software engineer, going back 30 years ago. So over the years, so it's become technical, the business.
Sure.
But the Chat GPT has helped me. So if I have any technical issue, I key into Chat GPT. It tells me, where my developers are going wrong, right? So yeah, it's a bit of technical, but more on the business side.
For sure. But I think that technical background definitely helps, right? Just given it is a highly technical product, that definitely helps. One more question from Greg. This is about the illustrative fabricated responses. This is the hallucination. What's the correct results testing percentage? Like when you guys was doing that? Yeah.
Yes, I think this is a hard question to answer. The hallucination, we are able to adjust hallucination mostly by fine tuning our prompts. So what we find, the hallucinations to a reasonable extent can be managed by having the prompt fine tuned properly, and having the right enterprise data fed into the large language model exactly at the right time. So yeah, so I mean, it's difficult to say whether it's at 25%, 30%. That's difficult to put a ballpark figure on it. But at the moment, we are building our test cases repository. So we are running this tool in the background, and we are building our test cases database. And the more we run it, the more data we are gathering. And I think in the 3 months to a 6 months time, we will have built up enough data that we will be able to analyze it more. And that's why we have a prompt managed as a source code. So we can actually see how many times the prompt has been tinkered with, and what those, and when it is tinkered with, what are the results and how it has impacted the response.
That's fantastic. I don't see any more questions from the chat. I mean, actually, I have a couple of questions, but I just want to check in the audience. Does anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, I'll ask a few questions from my side. I mean, feel free to unmute yourself, ask the questions if you have any. Actually, you know what? We do have one from Siva. Would you then have predefined engineered prompts? I think you probably answered that.
Yes, definitely. We have lots of predefined engineered prompts, and those prompts are geared towards a specific task. We do not have a general prompt. So we say just go do credit assessment. That's not the good outcome. So we have very specific small task specific prompt. For example, bank statement prompt, capacity prompt, the credit bureau file prompt, the privacy, prompt related to privacy, so we do have lots of prompts, specific prompts. Yes.
Awesome. All right. If there's no more questions from the others, I do have just like a couple of questions. I think we should be able to wrap it up. So my first question to you, Asan, is just from your own and your team's experience developing this. What were some of the biggest challenges your teams faced when developing this solution to implement to your existing product offering?
I think the initial challenge, the initial thing was, I mean, it was an issue of whether we have a faith on this technology or not. So that was the issue number one, whether we believe in this technology or not, and that issue was pretty much taken care of initially when we looked at what was available in the market space and what was being launched by Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, the Meta and all that. So we realized, yes, technology is here to stay. So is a good backing. Let's go and explore. So that was the initial hunch that as a managing director I had to overcome. I mean, there's significant investment involved in implementing this technology. So that we overcame. Then the other issue was there weren't any well documented APIs available. But none of the large language models had those APIs well documented, or the APIs that they had only limited capabilities. So if you go back in November 2023, the APIs that were in the market space had very limited capabilities. But if we look at today, at least I can openly say for OpenAI, their APIs are much more advanced. At least this is what we are integrating with. So whether the APIs are there, yes, they are there now. And then obviously we had to make a decision whether we build our own middleware or we use the LangChain or whatnot. It was a hard decision. I mean, I had to fight. And then my technical team or technical director came up, and he was of the view, let's build our own middleware. So it gives us more capabilities. And I think looking back, I have to agree with his view. It was a right decision that we made. It makes the dev work faster, so we could write the dev. We can iterate at our own pace. We didn't have to wait for the new release from the open source. So yeah, and then obviously coming up with the test data, that was I mean there wasn't any data that we could test the hallucination against. So we have to build some of these test cases, and then now we have put into the beta. So we are actually getting access to a lot of data from a live system to test our prompts against. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I probably just got one more question from my side. I mean, just as me as a product manager, I can't like my head always think about the problem space. So when you guys first started to think about or really ideating these AI agents and stuff, did you start with like some sort of problem first? If so, what sort of key problems did you guys identify that were solving for this solution?
Okay. Look. When we embarked on this journey, so our vision was, or our vision is still is, that we want to revolutionize the enterprise workflow of loan management. That's what we offer basically. So we offer a product that manages the entire life cycle of loan from onboarding to servicing. So this is where we are operating in. So we want to change the entire workflow of how people interact with the loan origination as well as loan servicing. And we believe the AI agent is the front end technology underpinned by the large language model. So that's our vision. So we didn't really focus on we want to automate the credit assessment side or the compliance side or the loan servicing side or the onboarding side. We just wanted to build a generic solution that manages and automate the entire life cycle of loan origination to loan servicing and everything else in between.
Got it.
This
It's
is
kind of
where
it's kind of like applying a bit of a first principle, right? Like really thinking, rather than optimizing, then just to completely change the way we're actually doing it, because the existing way, I assume there's a lot of inefficiencies and waste in or delays in the process, right? Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people are used to working in a certain environment, certain way for the last, good 15, 20 years. But I believe, I mean, the generative AI technology will definitely change the workflow, how we do things, how we interact. That's going to change. So we wanted to be the one of the forefront leaders in presenting something different, where people are not really interacting with tab one, tab two, tab three, click here, click there. So they are looking at the outcome produced by a generative AI solution, and they simply tick whether they agree on the outcome or they don't agree. Then what is the part that they don't agree on? What is wrong? And move on. So this is how we see it, and this is where we are taking this uh, product offering to, and we see what the future holds.
Amazing, amazing. I think, yeah, I think it's about time. Thank you so much for spending the evening on Tuesday night, and also thanks for the audience as well. I really appreciate it, everyone for joining. I think this is probably like one of our best sessions so far. The really in-depth and genuine, like we really appreciate you sharing such details around how you guys actually did it, not just the why, but also just the how part of it.
Yes.
It's just really exciting, and I can't wait to see that next 3 to 6 months, like the next version of your stuff like coming out. I would love to, like I said earlier, invite you back to the show and get you to share the next stage of your exciting
Okay.
development.
Thank you, Kurt, and thank you everyone who participated. And we'll touch base. Ping me in somewhere in early next year, and
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
that would be the appropriate time.
Yeah, and also, just for the audience to know, if you guys want to connect with Ahsan, feel free to. I do believe in the LinkedIn post. I'll actually share the recording with you guys. To the members after. I'll share Ahsan's LinkedIn details, and also if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free. Just search for Kurt Young. I'm pretty sure I should be the one sitting on top. And also, you can actually check out my website, kurtyoung.com. I do a bit of a product consulting on the side as well. Feel free to connect with me as well. Yeah. All right. Have a good night, and
Oh,
we'll see you guys in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. So,
okay. Thank you. Bye.
bye, guys. Thank you, Hassan.